Hey y'all, my name's Cara. This is day 9 of Vlogstice. We're almost at the end. I'm starting earlier in the day today so we have more natural light. I have a lot of stuff to do today, so let's hope I can get it all done. But we are starting with candles. So today we have to look at 18 and 19. And for the last video, we would then do 20 and 21, and that brings us up to the solstice. But because this is a Christmas advent calendar, it goes all the way till the 25th. So instead of doing 2 today and then having 6 to do in the last video, we could just do 4 and 4, but I think I'll do 3 and 5 so that we're still opening the 21st candle on the 21st for solstice. So let's do 18, 19, and 20 today. 18, 19, 20, green, red, green. And then we'll have the last 5 to do in the last video. So 18, green box but red jar. This smells nice and fruity. Yeah, I'm not going to take as long guessing these this time. This one's very clearly like fruit, but I don't know what kind of fruit. I guess it could kind of be apple-like, but it just reminds me of like a fruit pie, but I'm not sure what, cherry or something. Festive cranberry. That makes sense. See, if I think about things that are actually festive to the season, I probably could have figured that out. Yeah, smells like berries. What? I'm afraid to guess berries now because every time I guessed berries before, it wasn't berries. Also, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with my mic sensitivity, so I am talking kind of loud at it right now, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. It used to be so quiet all the time, and now it's like really loud. It was okay in the last video, but for a while it was being difficult. Blue jar for 19. Ooh, I don't know how to describe this, but I like it. Like vanilla, there's vanilla here, I want to say. But there's something like, it's kind of spicy, which I guess is vanilla technically a spice. But you know what I mean, like there's kind of a sharpness to this scent, but also a softness. Oh man, I wish I had better descriptive abilities for fragrance. Maybe like cocoa. I could see this being like a vanilla mocha, but again, every time I think it's a beverage, it's a baked good. This could be like a cupcake, honestly, but that's not very Christmas themed, so what would this be? I don't know. I give up. Oh, okay. It's because it's abstract. It's called Starry Night. Didn't smell like a classic painting to me, but it smells great. I am going to look at the scent notes on that one. So we'll look at those afterward here. But let me get number 20. White jar. Oh. This smells like a pina colada. I'm getting pineapple and coconut. Am I just so off? Maybe I'm smelling coconut and my brain filled in pineapple. This one is a harder scent to get. It's like more subtle. It's not hitting me in the face as much, so it's hard to tell, but I think my first instinct was coconut. And maybe the color also has something to do with that. I don't know. Yep, I don't know. What do we got? Snow angel. Okay, every other time I was like, this could be a fake snow scent. It wasn't, but now we've got snow angel. So yeah, let's look at the scent notes for these ones. And I'll read some of the other ones maybe if I remember what they were. So the ambered pine the other day that I really liked actually is rosemary, lime, and pine. Okay, that makes sense to me. Warm gingerbread, which I didn't like so much. Those are warm pecan nuts. Do you say pecan or pecan? I say pecan. Gingerbread biscuits and cinnamon. It was just a lot. There was a lot to it. Okay, snow angel, green pineapple, cassis and orange. Cassis. That's an ingredient in cocktails, isn't it? Is it from a plant? I don't know what cassis is. Oh, it's a town. C'est une ville en Marseille. It is a town in the south of France. It is, creme de cassis is what I'm thinking of that's used in cocktails. It's a liqueur. And it is from France. I don't have a lot of comments on the previous couple videos yet, but the comments on the previous video were talking about the accent that I was using in the beginning of the video. I didn't even mean to do that. The secret is, I am one of those people who talks out loud to myself a lot of the time. I like narrate my whole life to myself. And I sing to myself a lot. I sing all throughout the day. I don't do that on video as much because of copyright issues, but I'm singing to myself or I'm talking to myself a lot. And because I'm a theater person, or I say it's because I'm a theater person, I've always liked working on different accents that I might need in theater. And so some of the time I've been able to learn accents because of using them in plays. But other times, like since I haven't done theater in years now, but I still like to learn and practice accents because that's an interest that I've always had. And I've also learned that it might not just be because I'm a theater person, but also because of my neurodivergence. Like, it's just a special interest for me, but it's also like a way that sometimes people try to, like, mirroring other people's behaviors. Like, you might sit, stand, or like gesture in the same way that the person you're talking to is gesturing. So when I speak to people or I hear people speak with different accents, I want to speak with that accent. So yeah, most of the time I'm speaking to myself throughout my life in an English accent or a Scottish accent. I don't think my Scottish is particularly good, but I've been working on it for a while, and I did use it in a play quite a while back. I watched videos of a woman from Glasgow, and so that's sort of the area of accent that I learned. And also a little bit, I think, of Brave and Merida. So a lot of the time, if I have like a phrase that will help me get into an accent, I like to say for this one, I actually quote Merida, and I say, if you had the chance to change your fate, would you? But anyway, other than theater, I also use it at medieval and Renaissance festivals if I'm doing that, which again, I haven't done that in years, but I used to, and so I would often talk in a British accent, sort of broadly British. I know there's many different accents within England and Great Britain, so I couldn't tell you which ones exactly I do, but there's some different ones, just different voices for different characters. So anyway, cassis is French, and I did take French in high school, but that's about it. They wouldn't let me continue in college, long story. Anyway, there is pineapple in there. So I did get pineapple, not coconut. So I smelled pineapple and my brain filled in coconut. It was the opposite of what I said. Festive cranberry is frosted pink apple. Okay, I said it might be apple. Frosted pink apple, cranberry, and blackcurrant. And Starry Night is gourmand, lemon, and vanilla. Okay, vanilla I got. Lemon. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely, citrus and vanilla, but I didn't put those together in my head. Yeah, I can definitely smell that. That's great. I like that one. So now we put these away. But yeah, I said to somebody the other day that I've been trying to work on my Australian accent because I don't think my Australian accent is very good at all. It's hard for me to distinguish it from a British accent. I watch multiple content creators who are Australian, but of course, an actual person's accent is more subtle than what you think of. So anyway, I said I'm trying to work on my Australian accent, and this person was like, why? Like functionally, why are you actively working on accents? And they're not somebody I think who knows that I used to do theater a lot, so they wouldn't know that background. But I said, like, and the reason that it really came up that I noticed that I like can't do it well enough is that I'm playing Coral Island right now on my second channel. I don't have a lot of episodes up of it yet, but there's one character in that game who to me is clearly meant to have an Australian accent. Ben, if you're familiar with the game, I think Ben is supposed to have an Australian accent, or like a generally that area of the world accent, if not exactly Australia. And that's how I realized when I like went to read his lines that I'm like, oh, this is not very good. I don't like that very much. I need to work on that. So that's what I told them is that like, well, there's a character in this game that I'm playing for my second channel who has this accent. But that's just the reason that it came up recently. Like, to me, I'm like, why would I not be working on accents? I'm a theater person, but also I've always loved accents, but this isn't a person who necessarily knows that about me. But this is another neurodivergent person. And I was watching another video a while ago where somebody just randomly said something in a Scottish accent, and somebody in the video asked them, why do you know that in a Scottish accent specifically? And their answer was, autism? And so then I was like, oh yeah, like neurodivergence is also a reason that we get into random things. And so in retrospect is funny because I could have just been like, special interest? Like, what do you mean? I'm always doing accents. I love them. Always been doing weird voices. So anyway, what I actually want to talk about today, because we are approaching the turn of the calendar year, I want to talk about New Year's resolutions and intentions and themes. This again is something that I believe I've spoken about here and there over time, but something brought it up again recently, so I thought I'd talk about it again. The idea that, you know, a lot of people for a long time have said, I don't like resolutions and not wanting to make resolutions, but still wanting to do something at the new year. So firstly, you can share in the comments, are you somebody who does resolutions and why or why not? And if you do them, how do you make them work for you? Have you tried doing these different things where it's not, you know, so rigid or so specifically timed or something like that? So here's what I mean by that. I think a lot of people don't like resolutions because when you tend to do something like, I'm going to completely change this habit right away, or if you say that you're going to do something every day or something like that, then as soon as you slip up or miss doing it for a day or something like that, then people say, oh, well, I failed, and so then they stop doing it. Whereas when you resolve to do something in your life, it's not necessarily saying, I'm only going to do this if I succeed at immediately incorporating it into my life every single day and don't miss a day. When you resolve to do something, it's a much bigger, commitment to yourself. But we call them New Year's resolutions. I'm going to do this thing in the new year, right? So some people will do things like, I'm going to travel in the new year, and they have the whole year to make that happen, as opposed to, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and then as soon as you miss a day, it's like, oh, I failed that thing, even though, you shouldn't be going to the gym every day. You need rest days, but you know what I mean. Well, you could go and do different things, I guess. But anyways, that was just an example. That's not a resolution I've ever made. So if you're somebody who still does resolutions, have you done them in these other ways where it's more like, I'm gonna try to do more of this thing throughout the year, but it's not so rigid or timed or having a specific quantity or something to it? Or are you a person who just sets yourself a really rigid expectation and then you either do it or you don't? And if you're somebody who doesn't do resolutions, are you doing other types of things? So for years now, I don't know exactly how many, I want to say at least 9 years, because I think a lot of these things that I started shifting in my practice happened around 2015, 2016. As I met people and learned things from them, or I read different things, and just a lot of stuff happened for me around that time period, which some of you might be thinking now, well, 10 years ago is when you got started in reclaiming, but there's also a lot of other big shifts in my life that were happening at that time that just happened to coincide with getting into reclaiming, and that might all be part of the same overall pattern. That might have just been one of the things that was happening that I was able to open up space for in my life at that time, but there were other things happening at that same time period. So I want to say it's probably been about 9 years-ish that I've started working with this concept of intentions instead of resolutions, and we do work a lot with intention in reclaiming and in witchcraft in general. So any of you out there who are practicing witches and pagans, you probably have done some work with intention setting, and you know that there's a lot of involvement of intentions in our magic. So what I mean by this, actually before I even got really into reclaiming, I had found, I think it's T-Thorn Coyle, who is connected to reclaiming and is a fairy practitioner, Anderson Fairy, Feri. But every time I try to find that blog post again, I can't find it. I think I have it linked somewhere. But anyway, I think it was T-Thorn Coyle and a blog post from about a decade ago now that talked about having more of a magical practice being set, or setting an intention, choosing a theme for the year, rather than a resolution of something I'm going to do. And so at that point, I did start working with this idea of choosing a word as a theme for the year. I started working with that in 2016, and I haven't done it every single year, but there have been some years that I didn't pick one at the start, but toward the end of the year, I will look back and try to decide on something that describes what the theme of my year ended up being. So I haven't done that yet for this year, and I didn't pick a word at the start of this year. But in the past, some of my words have been love, truth, and the theme of truth versus illusion. A couple of years ago, my theme for my overall practice in the year was deepening devotion, so things like that. So when we set an intention for magic, or when you say an affirmation, because affirmations have a lot of overlap with intentions, it might be a phrase or a statement or something that you're wanting to bring into your life. But when I talk about them for New Year's, I'm more often talking about choosing a word or a phrase that can serve as a theme, and in that way can be an intention for your whole year. My intention is to do more with the theme of love and what all falls under that. Self-love, romantic love, more loving relationships in my friendships, whatever the case was. My intention for that year, or my theme, was just the single word, love. And then everything else that came out of that was just sort of a blossoming effect. As opposed to an intention that is I am doing this. I increase my self-love through monthly ritual. That's sort of an intention that's affirmation-esque and is still about that same thing, but it's more specific. And if I were creating an intention for a ritual that fit that theme, the intention for a ritual might be, let's say I'm working with Aphrodite because it's love, so maybe I would say, under the doting gaze of Aphrodite, I reach toward self-love and blossom new understandings of my relationships. That could be the intention for a ritual. So I'm not talking about forming a whole thing like that. I'm talking like truth versus illusion. Or what I'm thinking might be kind of like my theme for this year, breaking the barriers to my success, or even breaking the internal barriers to my success, but I think it's all of them. So breaking down barriers has been kind of a theme for me this year. Many of those barriers are internal, but there are also some external barriers that I think I've done some work on. Not entirely, but I think there's been a lot of progress toward that. I finally got my website up this year, things like that. Started posting more content on my second channel. So if I think back over the year, that might be something that strikes me as that was kind of a theme of my work and the energy throughout my year. Another one that I was more consciously working with and have been, this is a more long-term theme, is recognition of my own accomplishments and progress in my path. And I sort of started that intention or longer theme in 2023 because 2023 was my 20th anniversary of my witchcraft practice overall. My conscious identifying as a witch. Like I've mentioned before, I was doing magic as a child, but I don't consider my path in witchcraft to have started back then because I wasn't actively studying and practicing witchcraft. I didn't understand it in that way, but I was practicing magic, and that's also a reason why I make a distinction between those things, because I think many people practice magic, whether they know that that's what they're doing or not, whether they would call it that or not, and whether they have any conscious identification with a magical religion or a magical religious movement, such as anything within modern paganism, such as witchcraft. So you could look back at that and say, okay, Cara was always a witch in this lifetime. Clearly they were doing witchcraft as a child. But what I am saying is that I count my practice from the time that I knew that's what I was doing, and I was doing that on purpose. And I was using those words and that terminology on purpose. So 2023 was my 20th witchiversary overall. This year was my 10th anniversary of being in Reclaiming community. Although, because I did read Spiral Dance in 2012 and I worked through 12 Wild Swans on my own in 2013, we could sort of actually break it almost exactly in half in that I was a practicing witch for 20 years in 2023, and I had started my reclaiming journey, my personal reclaiming journey, about 10 years prior to that as well. Like 10 and a half years or so, if you include whenever I read Spiral Dance originally. But I count from when I was involved in the community, which was 10 years ago, because that was in 2015. So all of this is nebulous. It always depends on how you count and what you count from. But anyway, for the past kind of 2 years, this sort of window since my 20th witchiversary and now to my 10th anniversary of my first camp in Reclaiming, I've had this larger theme of looking back and acknowledging my progress throughout that time, acknowledging my accomplishments and my development of skills. It's really hard to do that sometimes just in the day-to-day and as you're going forward. But keeping track of things, keeping a record of certain things, I find so helpful because then that does enable me to look back and say, wow, you know, I started this thing that many years ago. And rereading my journal entries of what I was doing then and what I thought about things then, and also just remembering what my life was like and where I was then, and then thinking of where I am now and how much I've done since then. I'm not thinking about it as I'm doing it, I'm just doing what I'm doing, but looking back on it, it's like, wow, yeah, look at how far I've come. And so I feel like that part of the new year is wonderful, that sort of review, and I do my year in review video, which I'll be doing next month. I haven't even started thinking about that yet. But that's been a lot of what I've been doing is kind of this review of progress for myself, and also while looking back on that stuff, also looking forward to how am I going to continue doing this? How am I going to bring more of my work into the world in different ways and in ways that are accessible for me now in my current situation? Like my technology hasn't always been in a good place to be doing online classes, so trying to get more of that out. So again, for example, getting my website done this year, that type of thing. So it's kind of like as I've been looking back, also, how can I bring things forward? And one of the big things about that was getting my website and having a place to tell people what I'm doing. So a lot of timeline work, really, a lot of looking back on my timeline and dreaming toward the future, which is difficult for me to do. Forward dreaming is difficult for me. I cannot usually plan very far in advance at all, and I have not enjoyed things in the past. Like, one of the things that I didn't love as much about actively working in theater is that you always have to be thinking really far in advance because each individual show only lasts a few months. So you have to be thinking really far in advance, what am I going to be doing after this show and how am I going to do something after that? And sometimes I would audition for things that would overlap with my current show by about a week. And sometimes that was fine because they understand that's how things work. But other times I wouldn't get accepted to work on another show if they weren't willing to have me miss the first week while I wrapped up another show. So sometimes, like, if you miss that window, you have to wait another 3 months to get your next thing, and then what do you do with the 3 months in the meantime? It was really difficult for me to wrap my head around that, and a lot of my friends that I had graduated with were doing that, and they talked about how stressful it was for them constantly having to think like they had to book their jobs like 2 years in advance sometimes. And the community theater that I worked in, we didn't even have knowledge of what that theater was doing the next year. You know, we did kind of a season at a time. So that's not something that we could have done where I was at the time anyway. My friends were working like in, you know, much bigger theater scenes, which isn't ever really what I wanted to do. But one of the things that I really was like, that's not for me, was having to constantly be looking essentially for a different job every 3 months. And it was just hard to know, like, where am I going to be in a year's time? You know, there's a lot that's not super settled and stable in my life and hasn't been for a really long time. So the first thing that really has gotten me to think a year in advance has been my work in Reclaiming, because if I know that I want to teach at that next thing, or I want to teach this class and the next time that that's going to come up for the person I want to teach with is next year, right? So now I'm kind of able to plan for my next year a lot more than I have in the past. But that's not something I've always been able to do. It's not something that I've always liked to do. So I also think it depends on what you're planning. Because if you're planning really fun things that you're really looking forward to, it's a lot easier than if you're like, oh, I have to think about like every 3 months I have to get a different job essentially. So like now, I know half of my calendar for 2026 already. I know a lot of the things that need to be in place where they are because there are certain events that happen around the same time every year. And so if I know I'm going to be helping with that thing, or I know I'm going to be going to that thing, there are already things in my calendar that I pretty much know, okay, I'm not going to have any additional time to add something like that in these months. Or I know that I'm going to be having something once a week for these couple of months, but I could do something on the other weekdays or whatever. So there's a lot more of that now, and that is still difficult for me, but it used to be a lot more difficult for me, and I do think that it's easier now because this is stuff that I really love to do and that I want to be making the time for. So I don't really have any specific resolutions of any kind. I haven't chosen an intention for the new year yet. But I do know that one of my ongoing goals is that I'm working toward teaching all of the core classes. I've taught 3 out of the 5 of the Reclaiming core classes. I have one of them, a 4th one, scheduled for spring of 2026. That's one of the more advanced classes that you have to take elements before you can have taken. And there's another one, the 5th one, I was supposed to teach this year, but it got postponed. And now we're talking about teaching for next year, but we're not sure if it's going to be that class or it might be a different one of the core classes. So that one is still kind of up in the air. But my plan was that by the end of 2026, I will have taught all of the core classes at least once. So maybe that will still happen, maybe it won't. Maybe that last one will get pushed to after, and that's fine. But I should be teaching at least one more of the core classes that I haven't taught yet in 2026. I'm going to teach an online Elements of Magic class at least once in 2026, so I have some goals like that. There's also some other book club and personal study and facilitating study for other people type goals that I have. So yeah, there's some of that, but I haven't chosen like a theme yet. So I will keep milling about that over the next few weeks because it's not New Year quite yet. A couple weeks away from the time I'm recording this. So what about you? Do you make resolutions? Do you set intentions? Do you like having a theme for your year? Do you have any goals? Do you have any specific goals that you would like to accomplish in 2026? Whether that's personal study goals, personal habits, like changing something up or doing something more often than you used to, or doing less of something than you used to, giving yourself more time away from something, more rest time, reading more books, watching more movies, playing more of that game you like. Are you going to start a D&D campaign? What are you doing in 2026 that you're looking forward to? For those of you who are signed up for my newsletter, I will be sending something out for Solstice. Don't know exactly what's going in there yet, but it's in my planner to work on that over the next couple of days so that it's ready to go on Solstice. If you're not on my email list yet and you would like to be, you can go to my website and sign up for that there. The link to my website and a bunch of other things is in the description of my videos. So I will let you go while I go get some other work done, and I'll see you back here in a couple of days. Because our next video, our last video of Vlogstice, is for the solstice, which is on Sunday in my time zone. This video is going up on Friday morning, so there will be a weekend upload for me because it's on solstice. We'll open up the rest of those candles, we'll do something else. I don't know what yet. I haven't decided. I do have a plan for my second channel that I'm going to be playing a festive, cozy game, at least the demo of it, and I will upload that for Solstice, so after you're done watching the last Vlogstice video, you can go over there and do that. So that is in my plan for these next couple days as well. But other than that, we'll see what happens. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this video. I will see you next time, and until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye for now. Happy Vlogstice! Also, at the end of the last video, I forgot to fade out the clip at the end. I can't believe I did that.